Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushai, Kal Halal, La Yahweh, Bayashim, Yahushai, Bayashim, Rakah HaKodash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well, and peace and salutation unto the hopeful elect, the 1/3 of Yasha Allah, upholding the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of their ability. Peace and salutation. This is the brother Bakwasha, and I want to cover just a quick scenario that I'm sure all Achim have faced, and with the hour of temptation and Jacob's trouble and really the fall of Babylon occurring, we're going to be tempted more and more. And so even for myself, we all go through our trials, and those trials are only a temporary stage, of really your faith. And let's just say that I have more experience, and my armor through the spirit of Yahweh Shemi Shai has been fortified. And that's what these trials are for. These trials are to fortify your faith. And these trials are also to prove that, as scripture says, no weapon formed against thee shall prosper. Okay. And the weapon that this world and the prince of this world and the prince of the air, or the power of the air, uses is the flesh, or carnality. And so through the spirit, I want to go through a couple of scriptures that go into how to continue to have your faith in those trials, because we know that this whole scenario has been brought about because of our disobedience towards Yahweh Shemi Yahushai. But this trial is near completion. Okay. And with that being said, that also means that this world in itself that has been ruled in carnality, is about to end. And so wanted to go over just some quick scenarios, and maybe play a video or two that goes into some identifiers, because as scripture says, good is set against evil and evil is set against good. And so at all times while we are yet this day in our captivity, there are forces, principalities, evil chief rulers, that do not want prophecy to be fulfilled. And so, Lord will, this exhortation, these words are edifying for the elect to rebuild and to refortify your belief and your faith and your walk towards salvation and deliverance and the hope of eternal salvation through Hamashiach Yahushai. So this is the book of Sirach, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. And that's what's all around us. But how do we prepare our soul for temptation? Verse 2 says, set thy heart, thy mind aright, which is alignment with these holy scriptures. It says, and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. Because Yahweh Shemi Yahushai has us covered. He has us protected. But that faith is the ingredient. That's the gift that's been given for us to endure. Verse 3 says, cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. And that's what is going to happen to the hopeful elect, increased at the last end. Because Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of that which follow it. So let's grab a quick precept. This is 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 7. Let's see here. Let's start at verse 6. This is 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 6. It says, wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, ye are in heaviness through manifold temptations, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than that, Salakia, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahushua HaMashiach. And that's what we're going through right now, a trial of our faith. But the reward of that trial of our faith, Scripture says, verse 3 says, cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. So yeah, there's going to be ups and downs in this truth. Okay. But all of those trials, okay, are to increase you at the end. Okay. This is back in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 7. It says that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than that of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahushua HaMashiach, whom having not seen ye love, in whom though now ye see him not, yet believing ye rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory. Verse 9 says, receiving the end of your faith, and this is one of the points, it says even the salvation of your souls. So faith is that ingredient that causes us to endure. Okay. So when we're changed to a lower state, when trials and tribulations come, and matter of fact, let's grab this word here for trial. Trial is just a period of time. Okay.
Strong's G 1383, Dakimion. Dakimion.
It says trial. It says the proving, that by which something is tried or proved, a test. Okay. And our test has been here in this wicked society. Okay. That's been ran by Edomites. Okay. So-called white people and these other heathen nations, and maintaining and increasing our faith, because it says 1 Peter 1 and 9, receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls. And that's the one thing that Esau, the so-called white man, these other heathen nations, and 2/3 of our people do not want us to maintain. Okay. Which is the salvation of our souls. That's why Scripture says gold is tried in the fire and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. I want to say that's in the next verse here. This is Sirach 2 and 5. It says, for gold is tried in the fire. That's a tried or a trial in which that gold, those impurities, are being purged out. Okay. But it's only for a set amount of time. Although we've been in captivities, this is the last captivity. It says, in acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. And we know that adversity comes through the adversary. Okay. And the adversary is meant to be a tool of Yahweh Shemi Yahushai to refine the hopeful elect. So when you're able to view it from this perspective, you now have power, okay, over the flesh. You have power over these demons, over the wiles of the devil. Okay? Because that's what the devil is here to do, is to sift you. Okay? And then I'm going to play this video real quick. This is Luke chapter 22, verse 31. It says, And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. You see, Esau, the rest of these other heathen nations, and 2/3 of our own people, they don't have a shot at salvation. So now their whole mission is to derail you from receiving your crown, our crowns. Okay. And so what does that look like in a practical sense? Okay. And I just looked up some things regarding energy vampires. Some brothers may have heard of these terms. I want to say the elders from Dallas maybe went into this several years back, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up. And it may be a spinoff of something that they had went into some time ago. But I just wanted to play a couple of these segments because while here in this captivity, our spirits, the protection of the angels of Yahweh Shem Yahushua encampeth around us, but these demonic spirits are here to try us, okay, to get us off of the path of walking by faith and not by sight. And so we'll play a little bit of this, and I'll leave the link in the description box. Brothers can go check it out on their own time, but it's just to give some awareness that the spirit that we possess of Yahweh Shem Yahushua is always going to be afflicted. Scripture says that through many, and I'm gonna grab it. This is Acts chapter 14, verse 22. It says, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith. Once again, that's the element, that's the ingredient, that's the X factor. Okay, that our forefathers, Yahushua, the hopeful elect, we have, okay, to overcome this world. Our faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, despite all scenarios presented. It says, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, that we must through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of Yahweh. So what does it look like for people to have vampires around us and to try to drain your energy? Okay, because our life force, that spirit that Yahweh Shem Yahushua has given us, okay, the world has rejected. And so a way to keep that gold, okay, from becoming pure is to constantly vex it through impurities. Those impurities come through thoughts and ideas and propaganda that this world promotes. It may be a coworker. It may be someone that cuts you off as you're driving. Maybe your boss. Okay. Demons can hop on people left and right because the agenda of Esau is to try to overturn prophecy. But as scripture says, he knows that he has but a short time. Okay. So let's play a little bit of this and we'll wrap up.
Steal your life. No matter who you are, at some point in your life, you're going to encounter one of these energy vampires. And if you don't know how to identify them and you don't have the knowledge to protect yourself against them, then they will drain you of your life force until you have absolutely nothing left. And if you still think I'm being over the top, I encourage those of you who have dealt with an energy vampire to share your story down in the comments, and for the rest of you to read those comments. Now that we've established how important this is, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about dealing with energy vampires. We're going to discuss everything from crisis to dependency, guilt, drama, and so much more. And by the end of this video, you'll have...
And if you notice, all of these are emotions that cater to the flesh. Guilt, drama. See, that's why women in themselves deal in emotions. Okay, because it's a form of manipulation. Okay, they're carnal creatures. Okay, they don't possess the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua as the head. of the household. And so Esau, likewise, okay, is a carnal man utilizing the same manipulation tactics of emotion and psychological warfare. Okay, the same tempter, okay, that tempted Yahushua, okay, as he was fasting, okay, and tried to get him to go off and become carnal. Okay?
Everything you need to shield yourself from these monsters. Let's begin. Let's start off with crisis, because it's a favorite tactic of energy vampires. Because for energy vampires, it's not enough to just have a situation. They need to have a crisis, an emergency that requires you to tend to them right now and drop everything. Your attention, your focus is supposed to be going into yourself. Now, what an energy vampire does by using crisis is they use that crisis as a roadblock to prevent you from being able to put energy and focus into yourself.
Right. Whether that be reading, be it around Akim, doing the things that are going to build up your spirit. Okay. But these energy vampires, okay, come into your life and then attempt to derail you for any reason. Okay.
Crisis now becomes your new focus, diverts your focus and attention into the energy vampire. In this case, it's the guy. Now, I want you to understand something very important. An energy vampire doesn't have to be just a romantic partner. It doesn't have to be just a guy. An energy vampire could be your mom. An energy vampire could be one of your siblings. An energy vampire could be a friend. An energy vampire could be a coworker. So forth.
And so protecting yourself means that you depart from evil. Scripture says that resist the devil and he shall flee from you. Okay. I think that's in James. This is this is James chapter 4 verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore to Yahweh, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Because those that are not in this truth, okay, are agents of chaos. All right. And at any given point, that spirit, okay, of rebellion, okay, or being a vampire is to sift you. Okay. It's a trap, you know?
For example, when a guy calls you up and he says, oh, I have no one else to talk to. I need you to come over because I just feel desperate and I lost my job and this and that happened and I feel like ending it all. All of a sudden, a situation becomes a crisis and you feel like you need to put everything away that you were doing to tend to this person's crisis.
Now, it's different if this is a brother. If this is, a brother calling you in sincerity and good standard, that's totally different. Okay? But we talking about these damn Babylonians, man, looking to be subtle. Okay?
Self. And you don't have the energy or the capacity to deal with them in their crises, that you're going to say no to them regardless of how they feel about it. Next, let's talk about threats. If you had two roads that you could go down, one was going to give you a lot of pain and one was going to give you a lot of peace. Which road would you decide to go down? Obviously, we all choose the road that gave us a lot of peace unless you're a masochist or a sadist. Which one is it? Anyways, what I want you to understand is energy vampires, they want to use threats as a way to get you to choose the pain road, even though most of us would never choose the pain road. And you might ask, well, how would an energy vampire do that? See, with threats, they make you feel like, well, if I don't choose this choice, which is the pain of helping them, putting away the things that are important to me, not focusing my energy on myself, my own growth, my own mental health, the things that I need to be doing, right? Now, all of a sudden, instead of being driven by the fact that I know I should be focusing on myself, I'm driven by the fear of the threat from that energy vampire. So an example of a threat could be your mom telling you, if you don't come and do A, B, and C for me, I'm going to tell the family that you've been neglecting me. I'm going to tell the family that you don't care about your mother. You want everyone to know how little you care about your...
And ultimately, this just boils down to manipulation, okay? But like I said, with the hour of temptation coming, literally at the door, right? With Jacob's trouble, literally at the door, protecting your spirit, understanding what some of these scenarios look like are measures to where now you can see it before it happens and really continue to, as scripture says, let's grab that real quick. This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. It says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, Yahweh by Shemel Shai, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Okay? And let's grab this word here for wiles of the devil. Okay?
Strong's G 3180. Methodia. Methodia.
It says cunning arts. Okay. Let's grab that real quick. Low magic. Wow. Divination. Okay. It says these practitioners or wise men and women were distinguished from malicious witches by focusing on protective magic. But yeah, cunning arts. Okay. Witchcraft, man. It says low level magic. It says deceit. Okay. Craft. Trickery. Those are wiles. Okay. Matter of fact, let's just look it up real quick. But these are the wiles of the devil. It says, wiles of the devil, methodical, Salakia, Satan's crafty, methodical, and deceptive strategies to undermine faith. Boom. Okay? That's the whole goal. To attack faith. Because faith is spiritual. Okay? And Satan wants to attack the thing that is spiritual to make us less spiritual and more carnal. Okay? It literally means after a way, follows a way. All right? Let's see what else. Yeah, let me look up wiles real quick. Deceitful stratagem, crafty trick, sly artifice. Okay? So what are these sly artifices?
You to become a life force to that person, because when they ask something of you, even if it's inappropriate, even if it's over the top, even if it's too much, you still feel indebted to them, where you say, this energy was supposed to be going back into me. I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know that this is becoming draining. This cycle is becoming toxic, but I can't say no. When an energy...
And like I said, these are just small scenarios that over the course of time, and I would say most of them happen at work, because coworkers know that you don't walk like they walk. You don't talk like they talk. And now you're in a conversation with them and they're trying to pick up on, like, bro, what's your deal, man? You're weird. Because they're looking to be a vampire of your spirit or your energy. Okay? But it's a wild of the devil, because that person is now being a vessel to now actually come at you in your faith. Okay? That's why the scripture says, resist the devil and he shall flee from thee. But it's still a trial right then and there. Okay? Because Esau and these evil spirits, they know how to tap into your carnal nature as well. Okay? They know your move. That's why Esau studies Jake and the things that he likes and his patterns. Okay? Because now as a hunter, a cunning hunter, I think it said cunning craft. What did it say? Salakia. All over the place here. I think it said cunning craft, cunning arts. Okay? Through cunning arts, the cunning hunter, okay, now will craft a situation that put you in a predicament for you to become carnal and to want your lick back. Okay? That's why resisting is important, because he's looking to sift you. Okay? Sift us. So while deceitful stratagem, crafty trick, sly artifice. Okay? Oh, wow. It says to trick, to fraud, wizard, okay, deceitful charms, wiles of women, to deceive, to make a dupe of, okay? So yeah, all of these things are to show, okay, the wiles of the devil, man. But that's why we keep on the whole armor. All right. It says, Ephesians 6:10, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Okay. And one of those ways in which we have power is by maintaining our faith. It says, put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Okay. So that's the point there. Let me play one more and then we'll wrap up.
The vampire tries to address you by telling you all the ways you messed up. I don't even want you to argue with the energy vampire. I just want you to recognize that this tactic is happening and what this is designed to make you feel, right? Make you feel like more work has to be done. And then I want you to respond to the energy vampire and say, you know what? That's sorry that you feel that way, and I'm sorry that that's the case. However, that's not going to change the fact that I need to focus on myself, that I need to do things for me, and I need to prioritize these things before I can ever prioritize the things that are important to you. Now, if that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but at the end of the day, I need to do what's best for me. Next, I want you to understand energy vampires, they want you to be dependent on them for a very, very important reason. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say this energy vampire, because it could be anyone, is deciding to drive you to work every day. 5 days a week, they're going to drive you to work because if they weren't going to drive you to work, there would be no way for you to get to work. Let's say you don't have a bus pass, and if you spent all your money on Ubers, you'd barely have any money left over from the job, right? So they're saying they'll drive you to work every day. Sounds good at first. Now, after a while, you start to realize that when they ask something of you, they always bring up the fact that they're driving you to work. So now when they ask something of you, even if it's inappropriate, even if it's late at night, even if it's early in the morning, even if it's way out of your way and very inconvenient for you, you can't say no. Why is that? Because you feel indebted to them for the thing that you need them for. Now, what ends up happening with an energy vampire is they have you right where they want you in a way that allows them to sink their fangs into you. So they get into a situation where they say, perfect, now I can abuse my power. I can really sink my teeth into my victim. So how do they abuse that power? They start asking you to do things that are way out there. They start asking you to basically serve them as a slave would, right? Because they understand, okay, now this person feels indebted to me. This person also recognizes that they have no other options. And in the scenario where you need them, you actually have no other options. But this is why energy vampires love dependency. They don't actually want to do for you for the sake of doing for you. They want to do for you for the sake of making sure that you're dependent enough that you can't do for yourself, that you can't use your independence as a way of walking away from them or as a way of saying no to them. Because if you begin saying no to them, then all of a sudden you can no longer serve them as a life force. Remember, think of yourself as like a battery. This is why I say anytime you're dealing with anyone, I don't care who it is, family, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, you always need to make sure that you have a level of independence that will allow you to say no if the scenario presents itself where that person begins abusing their power. So what does an energy vampire want you to feel? They want you to feel guilt. Why is that? See, if you ever start to feel like the things you're doing for the energy vampire outweigh the things that the energy vampire is doing for you, you'll start to ask yourself very important questions, which is, why am I doing so much for someone who is doing very... Drama follows me everywhere I... Involved in the drama, I don't get into the becoming chaos and turmoil around. This is the interesting part about energy vampires. It's a very easy and simple concept when you think about it. Why drama always follows around an energy vampire? Because they become experts at sucking the life force out of people. Anybody that they meet, they suck the life force out of. So imagine being in a group of people or around a group of people and sucking the life force out of each and every.
And this is exactly what Yahweh Shai experienced. Okay. This is Matthew chapter 4, verse 1. It says, then was Yahweh Shai led up of the spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the son of Yahweh, command that these stones be made bread. So the first thing he tempted him with was the flesh to eat after he's been fasting. Okay. And that's exactly what these, and like I said, these are just, terms to put on people, but that's what they do. They want you to cater to the flesh. They want you to be involved. And majority of TV shows are filled with what? Drama. Even sports have quote unquote drama to what? To draw you into the emotion. Okay. That's why this society is driven off of Jake's emotion. Okay. But as long as this society is able to feed off Jake's emotion, Jake isn't becoming spiritual. So you never detach those 2/3 of our people never detach themselves from this wicked society. And now they give their life, their soul and their spirit unto these idols. And now the idol draws their power from them. Okay? But that's exactly what Satan was trying to do to Yahushua. Okay? Tempt him with the power he had or has to do what? To now turn rocks into bread when he could have did that at any given time. But it wasn't about showing his power. It was about being obedient towards Yahweh Shemi Yahushua. And that's likewise for the hopefully elect. It's not about us being able to prove, okay, to the wicked what our level of faith is. Yahweh Shemi Yahushua is the one that we're proving our faith to. Okay? This is Matthew 4:3. And when the tempter, and I want to grab that word here, it says, came to him, he said, if thou be the son of Yahweh, and see, that's the question. If thou be, it's like, you know I am, because you wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? And when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the son of Yahweh, command that these stones be made bread. You know, it's a tempt. It's a trick. Okay? It's a wile of the devil. Okay? It's a cunning art. It says, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out the mouth of Yahweh Shemi Yahushua. So once again, this is the bread in which a man will never hunger and thirst again. Okay? The bread of life, which Yahushua is, which is the word. Okay? So what good is physical bread if you have no eternal bread? Okay? This is John 6:35. And Yahushua said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger again. Because your spirit is being satisfied, not just your flesh, because that's where Satan rules or wants to rule. And he that believeth on me shall never thirst. Okay? So this is back in Matthew 4:4. It says, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out the mouth of Yahweh. Okay. So I want to grab this word here, tempter, and then I'm going to wrap up because it goes into, what that tempter does.
Strong's G 3985. Pyradzo. Pyradzo.
Okay, con. This is Parazzo. Let me slide this over here. Okay, con. It says Parazzo. It says to try a thing can be done. Salak. Let me make for sure I got the right one. Okay, Khan, 3985. Okay, Khan. It says Parazzo. It says to try, because we're talking about the tempter. Okay, to try whether a thing can be done. It says to try, make a trial. Okay, we already went into the trial of our faith. Okay, for the purpose of ascertaining his quality or what he thinks or how he will behave himself. Okay. And in that scenario with Yahushua, okay, that was the whole purpose. Okay. To try Yahushua, although he overcame through what? Faith. And that's the edification. Okay. You're always going to overcome through faith. You're not going to overcome through the flesh. Okay. It says in a good sense, it says to try or test one's faith, virtue, character by enticement to sin. See? And that's exactly what the devil does, man. That's what this society does. Okay. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the lust of life. All of those things are to tear at the spirit of faith in which Yahweh Shema Shai is given the hopeful elect. Okay. Let's see here. It says men are said, it says, because some of this is, it's the way Esau words it's not smooth. So it comes across as if Yahweh Shema Shai is tempting, but Yahweh Shema Shai tempts no man. It says, let's just stick with to try or to test one's faith, virtue, character by enticement to sin. So now I want to get I want to go into the root word of this because it goes into a aspect that I wasn't expecting, but hey, it's all through the spirit. So when you go into the root word here of pirazo,
Strong's G 3985, Pyrazo.
Okay, it goes into pira.
Strong's G 3984, Pyra.
Okay, which is a trial, attempt to have a trial of a thing. Okay, and then when you go into the root of that word, it says through the idea of piercing. Okay, it says apparently to pierce. Okay,
Strong's G 4008, Peran.
And so what it made me think about, because we're talking about the tempter. Okay, let me go back to the verse. It says, Matthew 4:3, and when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the son of Yahweh, command that these stones be made bread. And so we're talking about the tempter. But what did the tempter do? The tempter tried to pierce the armor of Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay? Because scripture talks about how they're to shoot at the perfect. Okay? With what? Through words. Okay? Psalm 64. It says, hide me, call Allah, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword. That's what the tempter did and does, okay? Which is he's whetting his tongue like a sword when he said, if thou be the son of Yahweh, command that these stones be made bread. That was a piercing. That was to pierce the armor of Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay. It says, Psalm 64:3, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, piercing, even what? Bitter words, that they may shoot in secret, cunning, okay, at the perfect. Because the just is not living by the flesh, the just is living by faith. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. Okay, so really that's all I wanted to share, in the spirit. It says beyond on the other side, because when you pierce something, it goes through. But what is the element that we have that the scriptures say to put on? Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that you may be able to stand against the wiles, the cunning arts, the piercing, the words of the devil that come through in forms of manipulation to drain you, as a vampire does. A vampire, in theory, right, sticks their fangs into you to do what? To draw essence from you. Okay? That's what these Babylonians are looking to do. That's what the hour of temptation is ultimately going to be. Whether or not Esau will be able to prick, to insert his fangs into those men, okay, and draw life from them, which is basically to destroy them. Okay. And 2/3 have already given their life force over to the devil. Okay. And that's why they have low energy, but all of this is a low form of magic, man. Okay. Sorcery is words. Manipulation and propaganda are words. That's why these holy scriptures are undefeated. Okay. Let's read down. It says, Matthew 4:5, then the devil taketh him up into the holy city and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple and said unto him, if thou be son of Yahweh, cast thyself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Once again, trying to use the words of the Holy Scriptures to do what? To beguile. The same thing he did to Eve in the garden. Okay? And notice it's if thou be the Son of God in both scenarios. To try to do what? To appease to the flesh. To try to stroke his ego. Okay? And then challenge his ego. Verse 7 says, Yahushua said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy power. Again, so this is the third time that the tempter is trying to pierce Yahushua. Through what? Through words. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and said unto him, all these things will I give thee if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Because ultimately that was the whole point of the temptations. And that's ultimately what Esau is trying to do now, which is find a way to pierce Jake to get him to be subservient to him and not Yahweh Shemi. What does Yahushua say? Then said Yahushua unto him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy power, and him only shalt thou serve. So he resisted the devil, and what happened next? Verse 11, then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him, which is the salvation. Okay. Which is that trial by fire to receive what? The salvation of your souls. Deliverance. Okay. So Lord will, like I said, this lesson was edifying for the elect. Just wanted to go into some of these scenarios. There's another video here. This guy goes into it as well. Just going into same kinds of energy that try to hold you back from serving Yahweh Shemi Shai, man.
Your concentration. They will try to hold you back from whatever it is you're doing. Their stories go off on so many tangents they never get to the actual point. Sometimes you might even be afraid to ask them the question because it could take 2 or 3 hours for them to answer. And number 8 is the self-righteous. Now this person claims to be virtuous and noble, but you are morally deficient. Some of those lies might just be small, innocuous, white lies, even if they're pointless. They might tell you they went on holiday when they didn't. Other times those lies may be outrageous. Their cousin invented the leopard. They often gossip, spread rumors, exaggerate. It's like they live in a fantasy world where the truth is just too mundane. Something to think about. If they are lying to you about others, they're probably lying to others about you. Number 7 is the frustrator. Now, this person just wants to irritate and frustrate. It's like they get a kick out of it. They will
Exactly.
talk over the movie you're watching. They will interrupt whatever you're doing just to break your concentration.
Because it's an evil spirit, man. You know? And in those times in which Yahweh Shai were tested, it was only to prove his faith. And so likewise with the hopeful elect. So I believe that's all I wanted to cover in the spirit, Lord will. Like I said, this was edifying, so like for being all over the place. But Lord will, it was edifying for the elect. And until next time, shalom.